Hi, I'm Ginny. I've been painting for over 40 years and I use the wet into wet or alla prima method, and I want to share with you what I have learned. You can oil paint too, so let's have some fun. Here's a peek at what we're going to paint today. Our pattern is ready, so let's get started. I'm going to start off the painting by taking this dull green mix, ultramarine blue, black, and titanium white. And I'm going to put this darker in the corners. You can see as I pull it out, it gets a little lighter. But I want my corners to be nice and dark. This is kind of a blue with a little bit of black in it, which gives me a little bit of a green tint. And I'm making my strokes kind of horizontal here so that I get this feeling of clouds, but without painting clouds back here. Nice and dark at the top. And then I'm going to pull this down so that I have some of that dark coming down into the lighter cloud section. Okay. I'm going to take a paper towel, wipe my brush off. I'm not going to clean it, I'm just wiping it off. Then I'm going to mix a little bit of burnt sienna right into that brush. Maybe a touch of white. And I'm going to start pulling a little burnt sienna into my sky. Right along the edges. Burnt sienna and white with the dirty brush gives me kind of a dull burnt sienna. I'm letting my paint kind of color, the paint on the brush kind of peter out so that it gets a little lighter towards the bottom. More burnt sienna along this horizon of trees right here. This one, a little bit of that kind of a glow of the burnt sienna here. Then I'm going to mix a little bit of, just a touch of burnt sienna and yellow. Right along the bottom here. I'm going to let this burnt sienna glow be just a little brighter. In a couple of places up through here. Next I'm going to take my yellow and white mix and I'm going to start working that into the sky. Yellow and white. letting it mix with the colors that are already up there, just to kind of lighten some of these colors, especially down along the horizon here. A little bit of there. Wipe my brush off so I can get a little cleaner, because right up and through here I'm going to go ahead and keep this nice and light right in through here. And I'm blending the edges together. Just letting this color be pretty loose. The idea here is to have a lighter area in the sky, picking up some straight white maybe. Yeah, needs a little yellow. A little streak up through here. Kind of go right over my moon area, just to kind of pull this color in. Can always go back and add other colors, darken some areas. Right in here, I want this to be nice and dark over here. Move this dark. My edges to be nice and dark over here. Maybe a little bit more. Of the burnt sienna right in there. A little darker burnt sienna right in here. Just trying for dramatic, you know, with light, darker around here at the top, mixing of colors as it comes down through here. A little bit of sunlight peeking through. Now, at this point, I'm going to take my mop brush and I'm going to very gently go over this whole sky area. Very gently, just using the very tip of the brush. I'm just kind of blending the edges, smoothing out the edges of my brush strokes. Then I can look at my sky again and say, well, maybe over here it needs to be a little darker, add a little bit more dark in there. But using the mop brush really helps push your sky back a little bit. Gets rid of brush strokes. Mopping. Okay, now once I have this mopped, maybe a little more of this color, this dull green mix, ultramarine blue, black, and white. Go back in here with a little bit more of that to kind of lighten up a couple of areas in the sky. It's kind of a silvery gray color. Add a little bit of this and then I will mop to get rid of brush strokes to kind of blend that in. That's pretty good. Now to get my moon in there, I'm going to take my finger and I'm just going to put a little bit of paint right on the end of my finger and kind of fill in that moon area. Yellow, ochre, and white here. I'll make it a little bigger than I want. Kind of play with it, a little more white, okay. And then I can mop over it. Add a touch more white. I want to blend the edges away a little bit. That's why I made it just a little bit bigger. I want to set this down in the sky just a little bit so that it's not quite so visible. As a round circle. A little extra white right on one edge. Pull that up a little bit. There we go. All right, now I think I'm going to call my sky done. And pull this this color down into my first set of trees back in here, so that when we put our trees in, it just kind of all blends. Just pull it down. And I'm mopping down this time. Really kind of blends it a little bit. Gives it a softer look. Especially this white area right in through here. Or the lighter area. All right, I'm going to call the sky done. I'm going to wipe this brush off. I'm going to use this same brush, 3/4 inch flat, but I'm going to turn it. Now I've got various shades of green on my palette. And as I use this brush, if I use this brush just to turn this, turn it this way and kind of get an up and down stroke, and all I'm thinking about when I'm doing this up here is the tops of the trees. I don't care what this part looks like, I just care what the bottom or the top looks like, this top edge. I want that to give the idea of distant trees, right? A little bit of touching, a little bit of up and down. Back in here, going up into the sky area. And I'm trying to keep it not even. I'm trying to keep it a little bit uneven. Touch, touch, pull, pull down. Going down right to the right to the base of the next level of lines here. Back in here, I'm going to do more touching, a little more blending. I don't want this to be as distinct. Over here I'm picking up more of the dull green that has a little bit of white in it, getting it a little lighter over here under the moon area. You see, as I pick up different shades of the greens, it gives the appearance of layers. And that's the important part of these trees back here, is just to give the appearance of layers. Now right under the moon here, I picked up a little bit lighter, the lighter of the greens, because I know right under the moon it's going to have a little more light. But then as it goes back, I'm going to go back to the dull, darker greens. But again, all I'm doing here is I'm using my brush on its side. I'm not turning it this way, and I'm not pulling. I'm just tapping to get that top edge in there, and then a little bit of paint on the canvas. Down at the base, maybe get a little darker. I just pulled some brush right onto the corner, or paint right onto the corner of my brush, so that when I go down here, it's a little darker along the base. Ooh, that's dark. Well, occasionally we might have some dark trees in here. That's okay. Gives it a little more interest. Now, basically this whole section of trees up here is all about a layer of trees and then a layer of fog. So this next layer right in through here is fog. I'm going to start out with some of that really dull light gray that I created. I used ultramarine blue, black, and titanium white, and I created kind of a dull silver gray. And I'm going to start by putting that in. I'm going to go right up next to my other layer of trees. Now I'm turning my brush, you'll see I'm turning my brush onto the corner to where I'm just kind of stomping that color in. That's all I want to do, is just stomp some color in and kind of blend it right in with the layer above it. I'm right on the layer, right on the line between the layers, stomping that in and then bringing this down. I'm just putting a base color of fog in there for now. Okay, stomp, 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 using the corner of my brush, just getting some basic color in there. I'm going to go right down to the next layer, letting my paint kind of fizzle out, not going back and picking up a lot of paint. Over here I want to do the same thing, going back, stomping right onto the base of these trees, right next to the next layer of treetops. Okay, to have that nice layer in there. Now I'm going to wipe my brush and I'm going to go pick up some white. Okay, and I'm going to go in here and put in, it's kind of like adding lights and darks and shadows in amongst the fog, right? So I just pick up a little white on my brush and I'm stomping using the corner of the brush. I've still got this 3/4 inch flat, using the corner of the brush, and I'm just mixing it right in with that layer that I've already put there of the darker gray. All right, that's all I'm doing. Easy peasy. And I know right in here under the moon, right, this area will be a little brighter, a little more right in through here. And I'm also going to pick up a touch of yellow and white right the base here. Just give this a little bit more of a glow right here below the moon area. Give it a little glow right there. Okay. All right, there's our first layer of fog. Now, wipe my brush off and I'm going to go back to my greens. Start off with that dark green, dull dark green. This next layer is a layer of trees, and I'm going to use that brush again, the corner, or the I'm going back to the flat of the brush up and down. Let this kind of go up over my fog, right? Again, I'm only thinking about treetops here. Gonna let these be a little, I'm gonna pick up a little bit different shades of green as I go through here. Some areas are going to be darker. Some areas are going to be lighter. Be sure to make some of your trees taller, not all the same color, not all the same height. Mixing in a little bit of the blue green, a little bit of the dark green, a little bit of the brighter green. Just using my brush. See, my brush is kind of broken up on the end now because I did all that stomping. That's really good. Gives me that little bit of that edge of the tree evergreen kind of look. I'm not trying to make these look like trees yet, but I like that little bit of character that this brush adds. This is just a 3/4 inch flat, not a very expensive brush. But it works really well for this technique. Okay, so I've got my line in there. I'm going to go back a couple of places here and get a little darker. If I can get light and dark areas in here, it automatically gives me the look of multiple layers of trees, because this is like a hillside or a mountainside that has all kinds of evergreen trees on it. You've seen this down maybe in the Smoky Mountains in the morning when you can see the fog forming in amongst the trees. Just went back through and kind of darkened the bottoms a little bit. Now I'm going to go back, wiping my brush off by paper towel. I'm going to go back with my dull gray. Again, I'm working on the corner. This is another layer of fog now. We're getting a layer of fog in here. So I'm starting off with that dull gray, just letting it kind of drift up into the trees. Again, I want this to be the base of the fog. Just using the base, the bottom corner of my brush, pushing down, kind of stomp, stomp, stomping. This will give me something to pound some lighter colors into. Kind of making sure I get some of this along the base of that, the last layer of trees I put in there to kind of soften that. This is a bigger area over here. And I'm leaving this rough. I'm not trying to, like paint it. I'm leaving it rough so that it gives the appearance of highlights and shadows. Now this fog area kind of goes all the way down, but I'm going to kind of stop it right about here and do my highlights. We've got a nice bank of trees in here, and then we've got some other kinds of trees in through here, different colors. This area right in here actually has a little bit. I'm going to use that first mix of ultramarine blue and black to kind of give a little bit more bluer appearance to the fog right in through here. Still just kind of stomping. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Put a little bit of this in this little bit of blue right into the bottom of some of these over here. This just gives us a variety of colors and kind of helps us not be the same all over the place. I'm going to wipe my brush. I'm going to go back in with some straight white. Start adding a little highlight to my fog. Straight wash, excuse me, straight white. Going along the tops, you kind of think of this as clouds, and our moon is kind of shining on our clouds, right? This is really, fog is just like clouds that are lower down, right? So I think of them kind of like clouds. Making some highlights. Again, I can grab a little bit of yellow, a little bit of glow here and there. Like the light found something to catch on down in there. And I can add a little bit of blue. Maybe add a little bit of white to my blue area. Brighten that up a little bit. Maybe a little more phthalo blue on my brush, just a touch. Almost gives the appearance of cloud or trees that are kind of, you can kind of see back in there, right? Have fun with this. Play with these colors a little bit. A little bit of yellow right along the base of some of these right here. If I add a little bit of the yellow and white right in through here, when I add my next layer of trees, it gives the idea of a glow behind those trees. So I'm going to go ahead and add some of that here and there. I've added some light up here. There's a group of trees right here. Let's go back to our darker shades of greens. This little section is going to have a little bit more of a tree look, but first I'm just going to get that whole the look of the treetops first. Get some of that in there. A little dark. Pulling a little bit more of the greener color here. That's the ultramarine blue and sap green right in here. It's just a little greener look. I want to dull that down at the base. I'm going to wipe my brush. Maybe grab a little bit of yellow ochre and white into that green. I just want to get a little bit lighter right in here. Wipe my brush off. Grab a little bit of the gray. I want this back in here to be just a little duller than it is. And by adding gray, it just kind of sets it more into the background. Now I can take my brush and I can kind of turn it a little bit more this way and get a touch of the side of the trees in there. Just touching the corner. I just want these trees to look a little bit more like trees, so I'm adding some little sideways brush strokes to get the idea of the limbs coming out a little bit. Mixing different shades of gray and blue and green in here, softening this down. A little bit of this gray right up and through here, maybe add a little white to it. Can drift some fog right up in between those trees. That would be kind of cool right in here. A little bit of foggier look. Okay, that's that little set of trees right there. Then right in through here, there's an area that looks like kind of like trees, but with a lot of fog in there. Basically, it's just a lighter, kind of a bluish tree. The bluish tone gives it the look that it's in the fog. Okay. And I can set some fog behind there, wipe my brush, grab some light gray, put a little bit of gray in around the base of these trees. Can kind of connect it to this up here, these trees up here. A little more gray, add a little white to this. Your fog, when you paint this, is not going to look exactly like my fog. My fog doesn't look like exactly like the fog that I did before. The whole painting looks a little different each time you paint it, because we're not creating an exact pattern. We're giving you the idea and showing you the techniques of how you might do this, and then you're going to make the painting your own. See these trees right in here? I'm going to go ahead and make them a little more distinct, just a couple that are kind of poking their heads out right there. A little over here, make those a little more distinct. The thing that's making this work is this brush that I've got. When I press on it, when I press on the corner of it, see, it kind of opens up that end. See how messy that is? If you can see that or not, how messy that is on the end. And it really gives a lot of the effect of those. It gets messy on the canvas too, and gives me kind of the effect of those trees, the tree branches. I'm going to go lighten this up right in through here. Just adding white, and I'm pushing that white right into the color that I already have up there. Lighten that right there. Kind of push this fog around this little section of trees. Kind of makes it look like the trees are going in and out of the fog. And as I go down, I can go back into that gray color, kind of pull this gray color down. I'm going to bring this gray color in and around these little trees that I kind of put in there. I want these trees to look like they're really back in that fog. Pulling in a little bit of blue every now and then. A little darker gray. This is just the underpainting of this section. It's getting a little darker down here. I'm going to put it a little darker right through here, and then I'm going to go back to some lighter gray, and then I'm going to pull some. I'll go back and highlight this here in a minute. I just want to get this filled with various shades of gray. the way over into here. Okay, wipe my brush off, go back in, grab some white. Let's start making some of this a little lighter. Just kind of weaving this white in and around these trees or this fog, and sometimes it just lets the shape of a tree show up back in there, and I'm just going to let it do that. Every once in a while grabbing a little bit of yellow to add to that. This kind of lightens up. Little white. All right, I'm going to go back up here and work on this area of trees right in through here. Let me put some fog right in through here, and then I'll add trees to it that are a little darker. This area, the trees are a little bit more distinct, but there's a lot of fog behind them. Now this whole section of trees right in through here, they're a little bit bigger, and so I'm just going to start adding right back in here. I'm going to add just some tall treetops right back in through here. Trying to make these not even, and I'm just getting the idea of the trees back in through here, up and down. I don't want them the same height. Then I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to turn it this way. See how I can add the idea of branches kind of going out, using the corner, turning it, using the corner. Just kind of pushing that corner and getting the idea of branches on some of these trees. Now I don't have to do that on all of them. And I'm going to push some fog in and around these. So I'm just going to randomly put some taller trees shapes back in here. You can grab a little bit of some different colors. That dark bluish green back in here would look good, right? Doing this one sideways, getting a little more shape. Maybe I'll grab a little bit of the green, add a little bit of green in there. That's a little too bright. I'll go back and dull it down with some of the darker colors. I want the idea that these are green, but I don't want them to look real bright. This is all fog, right? Now there, I've got some trees going on. Get some taller ones in here in amongst this fog here. could just kind of push the shape of the tree in there, into the fog. It makes the fog look like it's coming up around the different tree shapes. And I'm going to go back with my fog color, that kind of gray. I'm going to push this fog in around some of these shapes here, up in here. I'm going to grab some lighter fog color, white. White on my dirty brush gives me a lighter gray. I'm just going to push a little bit of this lighter gray up through here, make this area nice and foggy right here. Over here is going to be some fog, and then maybe some of these tree shapes in here. Just kind of playing with this area, adding some dark and light. It's all about dark and light. Right next to the wolf's head, right in here, I want this to be fairly dark, so I'm going to put a dark shape, tree shape, right behind his face right here. Okay, work that into my background. This whole painting is all about lights and darks. It's getting the effect of trees and fog by using various shades of light and dark greens. Our fog color. Sneak in some grays. If my fog isn't showing up or my trees aren't showing up, I can add darkness. I can add darker shapes to them to get the effect of layers. Or I can go in with some lighter colors, just wiping my brush off, going back in and grabbing some of my white. See how I can just kind of blend this fog right down around my wolf. And just kind of play with this whole fog bank. There's over here, there's some fog happening right in through here. And then this kind of drifts down. This whole area over here is all fog. So I'm going to go in with my fog colors, grays, light grays, dark grays, pull in a little bit of blues, that light blue that I had. Just filling this in very uneven. I'm not getting rid of my brush strokes here. I want these brush strokes, this kind of painterly modeled look, to show. Maybe there's a touch of a tree shape back in here. Okay. This fog will go all the way down. Behind our wolf. And it will even go up in between the wolf's legs right there. Just base coating right now. We'll get a close-up on that wolf here in a minute when we start painting it, so you can see it a little more up close. Right now I'm just getting the fog colors laid in. This fog goes all the way down here. I've got another layer of trees that are going to be right at the near where the lake is. Okay, I've got base coats in there. Maybe I want this to be a little more tree-like shapes over here. So I'm going to go back with this brush, turn this way on its end, get some shapes of those trees very lightly back in here. Real foggy, so we're just seeing these trees through the fog, so there's not a whole lot of shape there. I'm going to go back now with some white, and let's look at some of this fog back here and kind of give it a little more shape by highlighting some of the areas. I'm going to use my mop brush to soften some of these areas. You can do this as you paint. Or you can do this towards the end and then go back in and reestablish some of your darks, but let me show you what I'm talking about. If I take my mop brush and just tickle the fog, we can make it kind of blend the colors a little bit, and it softens the edges of the fog. It just kind of makes it look more misty. A little more see-through maybe. But I don't want to get into my trees too much. I can a little bit, especially along the bottoms where the fog is going to make that a little more misty. Up here in our sky, maybe a touch, pull this down. But the key to using a mop brush is really very, very, very gentle touch. And right on the edge, right on the tip. If you push too hard on this mop brush and do this, you're gonna get paint down farther on your mop brush, and you don't want to do that. You really just want to use just the tip. So I'm just softening all these brush strokes, really making this look
like it's in, this mist is just real soft, okay? It really helps this. Very good. Don't move the paint. You're just touching it almost. It pushes it back into the background. Very nice. I'm going to go ahead and pick up some of my dark greens. I don't want this, I want to keep this dull. I don't want this to be too bright. Some tree shapes in here. Maybe some tree tops right in through here. These are a little more distant, right down in through here, so I'm not getting too carried away with shapes right through here. A couple of these, maybe right in here, give it a little more shape. Turning my brush, using it on its side. Not very much of this. Little different shades, gives it a little more layered look. A little darker right along the edge of the fog bank that's going to be down here. Okay, right in through here, I'm going to add a little bit more fog. I'm going to take a little bit of the yellow and white, kind of add a little bit more of a glow right down in through here, right beneath our moon, right? That's why I'm doing this. It's kind of like right in the moon area, where the moon might be shining down in this area. Cad yellow and white right there. I'm going to follow that up a little bit. Up into this area right there. Okay, then I'm going to take that light gray, make a light gray fog bank right through here. Just going back into the fog color, keeping it a little on the lighter side. Because this is going to be down along our water down here. Right up next to our wolf. Making it a little bluer right here along this area, right in through here. I think that'll help our wolf stand out a little bit. Okay, go all the way down to my, right down through here. I'm just going to make a line for myself so that I know right there, that's the top of my water line. Okay, then I'm going to go grab some white with a tiny bit of yellow in it. I'm going to give this fog area some highlights. Right beneath my moon, I'm going to keep the fog a little lighter, add a little yellow to it. Keeping it low to the water line. Now for the water, I'm going to start off with a kind of some of that gray. I'm just going to I'll take my brush and go straight across. I want this line right through here to be nice and straight. So to get that in, I'm going to start off with that darker gray, kind of that tree color, just a little darker right there. And kind of pull that in, pull that right across, so that my horizon line that's right there is straight. That's all I'm trying to do right there. Then I'm going to take some of the darker blue. I want this to remain really pretty dark, and I'm going to pull it from this side, from the left side in. And kind of let that fade. This is that ultramarine blue with black. I'm just pulling this in from the left side into the canvas. There's going to be a fog bank that goes up and around this water. So I'm not real concerned about making this look so much like water as just getting the colors in there. And if I can pull these dark colors over from this edge in, well, that's going to get it. Then I'm going to take my yellow and white right on the tip of this brush. And I'm going to go right along my horizon line right in here and just get a nice brighter line of color right there, and then let it fade off. I'm thinking about where is the moon? Right there. Okay, so I want it to be shinier right there, and then go off. I can maybe do that a couple of times just to get a little bit of a glow right there. Now if I get that too big, I can go back in with some of my darker colors. And just fade that away. This lake down here is a little on the bluer side, but it's still really pretty dark down in here. So we don't want it to get looking too blue. Now, up here where we added all this fog, I'm going to go ahead and take my mop brush and kind of soften that whole area right there. Just soften this. I'm going to go back in with a little more highlight here in a second, but I want to soften this all down so that it fades. Looks like I can pull this down and soften that too. Now the lake really does need to look like it is kind of reflecting the things above it, right? So I'm going to put a little bit of the colors that we have above it. With some of this gray in here. I'm going to pull this gray from the center where our moon is going to be reflected. Pull that all down through here. Lighten this area up just a little bit with some gray, lighter gray. Pull it down, smooth it out. I just want to get a little bit of that grab some of that yellow again right below my moon. Put some streaks of that in there, very gently. This is very light yellow. I'm just emphasizing that area right there just a little bit more, right there. Pull it out left and right. I can take my mop brush and I can soften that. Pull it left and right, pull it down maybe a little bit, just to kind of blend it away. Then I'm going to take my brush, some white, and I'm going to highlight a few more of these clouds, or this fog area back and through here, especially right where the moon might be shining. Soften that I'm going to wait to do this fog until I get my the rock and the wolf done, but I can go ahead and add just a touch right below this moon. There might be a little bit soft glow of the a reflection of the moon above. I'm going to put it on with my finger, and then I'm going to take my mop and just really gently fade it away. Let's work on our wolf next, and I'm going to move up close to do that. To do this wolf, I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. I've got about a 1/4 inch wide filbert. It's a softer brush. And I'm going to start on the ear, right back here along the back side of the ear. I've got a little bit of black, and I'm just going to put in a dark area right along that back edge of that ear. Inside of the ear is a little bit of dark. I'll start off with a little black right in there. Okay, kind of pull that down right there. Along the edge of that ear here is going to be a little white. Just going to pull that white down, little line there. And then I'm going to blend this a little bit to get it darker on the back side, and then kind of comes down right there. There is white on the outside of this ear right here. Just going to put it in there for now. Right along the back edge of this ear is also some dark. And then that dark kind of comes down into this area. I'll just kind of give myself the start of that for now. Okay, I want to go ahead and put the eye in. Now, use the smallest brush that you need to get that eye in there. The eye is filled in with just straight black. Right there. I'm going to take burnt sienna and black, and then add a touch of yellow. There's going to be several shades going on here. There's going to be some softer burnt siennas and yellows. There's going to be some brighter burnt siennas in here. There's going to be black. So to start off the face here, I'm going to use burnt sienna, dull it down with a touch of black, and add some yellow to it. Right along the front of the head right here, I'm going to put a little bit of this color right in there. And then I'm going to take a little more white, a little white into it, and I'm going to, let's dull this down or lighten it right along there, a little bit of white. See how it kind of blends with that and lightens that area right there. I'm going to take a little darker, the burnt sienna and black, right up around the eye. This is very detailed work. See how I'm putting my finger down on the canvas? That enables me to get a little steadier hand. Right there in front of the eye is a little burnt sienna and black. I'm going to add just a touch more black to my burnt sienna, and I'm going to put this kind of right behind this little eye right here. A little bit more black maybe. I want this to be a little duller back here. I'm going to blend it right into the eye area right there. And then pull that out. Pull that out. Kind of begins a little mask area right there around the eye. Right in front of the eye, right there, I'm going to put a little bit of white right there. Okay. We'll give that a little more highlight later. And then right over the eye, there's a touch of white right there. A little bit of white there, a little bit of white right above the eye. See, it kind of sets our eye off. Then I'm going to pull this color in, kind of pull it down. See if I add that right underneath. See, you couldn't hardly see that white until I added the dark. That's what painting is all about. It's about lights and darks. Pull this down into the face a little bit. Go grab some of that lighter burnt sienna mix. Kind of pull this down. Right there. Right on the nose, this nose right here, right there, is nice and dark, just a little. Right there. Under the chin right here is nice and dark, so I just kind of set that down in there so I can see that. Bottom of the chin. Go back to this brighter yellow, burnt sienna and yellow mix, and kind of fill this area right here with a little bit of the lighter mix. Kind of pull that down right there. You can look at your materials, your reference materials, to cut for the placement of these different colors. I'm going to go in with some gray right next to that ear, a little bit of light gray right there. This is almost my fog color. I'll put a little bit of that around the ear right here. And then I'm going to pull a little bit of darker color into that. Down onto the forehead right there. Wipe my brush because it's a little too dark. Blend those two together right there. Pull that little mask area around the eye out just a little bit, right there. I'm going to go back with straight white, and I'm going to highlight that little right there just a touch more, and then right above the eye Again, give it just a touch of white right there. Now you can use a liner brush and put a tiny little dot right in the eye. Be careful with this though, you don't want this very large. Tiny dot. Actually, I'm going to go back and make it a dot of yellow. I think yellow would be more appropriate for a wolf's eye. Right there. Dull it down just a little bit. It's a little too bright. If you don't like it, you can always go back with your black. Add that back in. Go grab a tiny bit of yellow white. There is that tiny dot. You can use this liner brush too to get a cleaner little line right above the eye with the white. Okay. I think I'll take that. Now back to my filbert. I'm going to go ahead and finish the muzzle right in through here with a little bit of gray. Clean up the nose a little bit. Pull this colors down together. Join them right there a little bit. This color come on down into the face a little bit more, and then I'll pull some of that darker gray into this area of the face, and then I'll go back with some white to give this the look of that ruff, that white ruff. But you got to have dark for your light to show up, remember? So I'm putting in some dark color right in there, joining it with my ear right there. Right underneath of this area is going to be a nice little black, kind of dark black brown right in there. Now when I wipe my brush and go back and pick up straight white, see, I can take and pull this white, little bits of this. I'm using just the tip of this filbert brush, and I can pull this fur that's right around the face. Ear comes down right there a little bit more. Can pull this fur out. There's like two little layers there of fur. Pull this out into there. If it gets too much, you can go back in with your darker color. I want a little bit darker right in here to give me the look of that second layer. Blend this a little bit more right on the edge. those two layers together right there. Okay, now right on the front of the chest, right in here, is going to be a little lighter color right through here. I'm going to go ahead and add that in. Now if I don't have my background coming in close enough, I can always go back in with the darker color, the gray. See, I can add that right next to the nose, right there. There's a little patch right in here of a little lighter. That's burnt sienna, yellow and white right in here. Just going to add a little lighter patch right there on the front of the chest. Fade that back into a little bit more of the burnt sienna, mixing it with that little black area right up here, pulling that out. So I'm not trying to create fur, I'm just creating shades of color, and occasionally you'll see a little stroke that will give you the idea of fur. This is very small. Blending that up into my little fur ruff right there. There's a little bit of white between the two here, these two colors. Let's go ahead and let that. There's a little white right up the back. Of the neck. And I'm going to emphasize this black right here a little bit more, let that fade into that little white, then bring this down. The rest of the wolf is really just about laying in those different colors. I'm going to go ahead and lay in this black as it comes down. This area right here, and then right behind this leg, right in here. A little bit of this goes right in between these legs just to kind of help separate them. And then there's a little black ruff right in the front here. Kind of helps us separate this area a little bit. It's looking dark, but I'm going to blend other colors into this, so I'm just setting this up for some blending. Okay, and then we've got an area here that's going to have some black where we can, we'll put this in, and then we'll blend other colors into it. Right in there. Right along the back. Just kind of showing where this goes right now. Little area between this area and the tail. We'll put that in there to give us something to blend into. Right underneath here is a little black. And then right in here. right along the front again. Touch this with white once again right through there, just to kind of highlight that front edge of the chest right here. Kind of goes down right here. And along the front of that leg, just put some touch of that in there, and so I'm dragging my brush down, kind of letting it blend right into the edge of that black. And there's a white section to the leg right here. And then there's some right along here. There's a little patch of that kind of reddish color, burnt sienna. Get a little patch of that. Let's go up here and add a little patch of that burnt sienna right in here. Burnt sienna and yellow. Maybe a touch of black in it. Don't want it to be real bright. We can go back and dull these colors down too once we get the placement in there. Right here there's a little brighter burnt sienna and yellow right there. And right there, kind of blending this all in. And then there's a little patch of white right in here. I think I'm going to need a little more black in there too, but let's get this kind of established right there. A little white right there. A little patch of white right along the front right there. Again, that kind of goes down the front leg right there. Blends into our other two colors. Just softening the edge between these two colors. If I get that leg too thick, I can always go back with the color that's behind it, right? And kind of shave it down a little bit. It's a nice thing about oil painting. It's very forgiving, very easy to fix things. I'm just kind of tickling these colors in between to kind of blend them together, just the edges. It's kind of a joint right there. I'm going to make sure I have that shape in there. Bring a little bit of that color down in there. Now we'll go back and we'll add more highlights once I get the basic shape created. So we've got a little patch of white right in through here that's just kind of blending with both of those black areas. I'm just going to pick up some of the color and just kind of use my brush to kind of swish down through those colors and kind of blend them together. Pick up a little more black. Go back and forth between the black and the white. I want to get the dark of the black in there. And then the idea of the hair, the fur, kind of follows that. All right, now we're going to get some of these rusty colors. A little bit of that lighter tan color. Start getting some of that in there.
Okay, I'm just still working on the body. I'm taking some of this black right along the back here. I'm going to soften this. A little bit of gray right in here in the tail. Add a little bit of white to this. I want to soften this tail. Kind of blend this together right here. I'm going to soften these two right here together because I'm going to add fog later, but for now I'm just softening this color back here a little bit, adding a little gray. Okay, I'm continuing to work on the fur. I've got this black up here. I've got some in this area. I've got some of the burnt sienna with a little bit of yellow in it to brighten it up. Right in through here. Right back here is that same color. This is burnt sienna with a little bit of yellow. Right in through here. Bring that down. Pick up a little black, mix that in there. Right on the front of this back leg, there's a little white right in here. Just going to go ahead and put that in. Let it kind of mix up here a little bit. A little bit right back here, kind of blend this together. Soften this down into that area. This is the tail. I'm just going to make sure I have this area right here outlined correctly to get that back hip in there. Again, if I get this area back here up too high,
I can always take that background color right along there and just narrow it down. This is that foggy area back in here. We'll blend this together here in a minute. I'm just looking at the reference material, the reference image. And just making sure I get my colors in there correctly. I think this is out just a little too far right here. So I'm going to grab some of this background material. Needs to be lighter right in here. Excuse me. A little bit of white right in here. A little white right there. I'm keeping my strokes going the same direction as the fur. Okay, that's going to give me enough of a look of fur without drawing each individual hair. I'm just looking for the idea of fur, not individual hairs here. It's best to let your viewer imagine the fur than to try to create every single hair. I'm going to go through here and soften this a little bit, especially right up along the top. I grab a little bit larger brush. Right up along here. I'm going to soften these edges out a little bit. Right in there. Pull this down. Soften these edges. When you soften edges in a painting, it actually pushes that area back. This area here on the wolf's face, we want that to be a little sharper. That's more of our focal point. But back in here where the little bit of light here, where the fog is going to kind of start surrounding the wolf, we're going to soften that. Just give us a little darken it, but then I want to get right along that top edge. I want to soften that. Kind of soften that into the fog. We still have more fog to add up here, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. I just want to make sure that back edge is softened. A little bit of white in the tail there, but soften it down. Make sure we have a distinct line right there to show that back leg. All right, again, I'm going to soften this bottom edge. Emphasize the black on the wolf a little bit more. Pull that in there. Let it be softer as it gets back over here. That outside edge right here to be a little thicker. Wolves have thicker chests, so right there. Want that to kind of stand out a little bit right here. Bring that down. A little bit more emphasis right in here. A little bit of accent right there on the ruff around the head. Just a touch more white right in there. His ears look good. Now I can also make sure I've got that background filled in around that head. Just making sure I don't have any white showing, canvas showing back there. Okay. While I'm in this area, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of detail to this fog back in here. Go back to my bigger brush. A little bit right in there. I can take my mop brush. I can soften this area back in here. I can also soften the back of the wolf a little bit. Again, that's just to kind of help that blend a little bit in there. Okay, now let's work on this, the rock that the wolf is standing on. I'm going to stick with this. It's a filbert. It's about 1/2 inch wide. And I'm going to start off with some of that dark burnt sienna that I've added a little black to, because underneath of the wolf under here I want this to be dark. So I'm going to lay in some dark right in there. Right in through here. Kind of feather that back. And then I'm going to get this front edge of this rock. I'm going to make it dark. Light is coming from the moon, so this area back in here will be fairly dark along these edges and down into the water here. Really want right along the lip of the rock here. I want to get that fairly dark right in through there. Then I'm going to pick up some of the burnt sienna with some yellow ochre in it. I'm going to get a brighter color for this edge over here. That's going to be out in the light a little more over here. Pick that up on that edge, right along the edge here. And I'll blend that down a little bit into my dark here. Again, right along this edge in front of the paws. It's going to be lighter right in here. This is burnt sienna with yellow added to it. Gets me kind of a golden color. Add a little bit of that coming down the front of this edge here. Then I'm going to pick up some white and add to that color, that burnt sienna plus yellow. Add a little white because I want this edge right here to be brighter. That's right out there in the sun, or the moon, moonlight. Maybe even yellow ochre and white, or cad yellow and white right there. Just give that a little bit of a glow right there. And then right along this back edge right here, we can add a little bit there. Even brighter right here. Kind of pulling that back away from the edge right there. Pull this down. I want this to look kind of angular, so I'm trying not to get it too smooth, right? I want hard edges on my rocks. Underneath the here is going to be shadow from the wolf, right? Okay, that's the rock pretty much. And the next step is just simply to take more of my gray, filling this in, making this over here a little lighter so that it shows up against my water, right? This corner can be a little darker down in here. I'm just putting the gray down there as the under painting. And I'm going to go back with white, and I'm going to add the highlights to my fog using the corner and just pulling that color, pushing that color into the fog, especially along the edges. Don't worry, we're going to mist this out with our mop brush. And then just blending this in over here. Making sure I have enough color up here. Okay, then I'm going to take my mop and I'm going to soften this fog using my mop. Very, very lightly, very gently, which kind of turns that into fog. I think I need to add a little bit more paint right in here. Wipe my brush. Right underneath of here, I want this to be soft, right up against this rock back in here. So I'm just going to soften it down with my brush. I can use my mop to soften that. Okay, now the last thing I always like to do is I like to look at my painting and I like to see if there's any areas that need to be a little darker. I'm going to detail it out, see where I need to maybe add a little more darks, a little more lights. This one's looking pretty good. Sometimes you have to get back from your painting, give it a day or so. Make sure you've got your darks and your lights in there, dark enough, light enough. Pull this water in a little darker right in there. Maybe add a touch more light to my little moon right there. Just a little touch. And then pull it with my fan brush. Even my finger. Just kind of pull it a little bit. Okay, the last thing I do is I take my Kemper tool and I just sign it right down in the corner. You can use a brush too. And I think we're gonna call that one done.